Welcome to this step 32 of our Spring MVC course. In this step, we would get set up for Spring Security. So there are a lot of useful snippets that you would need to set up the Spring Security stuff. The first one that you see in here are the dependencies. So we need two jar files, Spring Security Web and Spring Security Config. We would use the 4.0.1 release version of Spring Security. So we will add these to our Maven file. This entire Java file you are looking at is called the security configuration. This is where we define a couple of things. One is who are the valid users to access the application and what are their roles. So that's defined in the configure global security. And the second thing that you would see in here is the configure method, where we are configuring what are the URLs which are accessed by everything and what are the URLs which have to be secured. So if anybody types in / to do something, then we don't want to allow them in. We would want them to go to the login page, log in, and then come back to the URL. That's what we would define in here. So the first thing which we looked at were the jars. So we would add in the jars. Next thing which we would add in is the security configuration class, which is basically the configuration for Spring Security. The third thing we would need to do is to execute Spring Security before every controller request. So what we would do is we would try and intercept every request. The best concept in Java EE for intercepting every request is by using a filter. So what we would do is we will define a filter in the web.xml and use it to do the Spring Security stuff. So those are the three things: add the jar, add the filter, and add the configuration. That's quite simple. Those are the three things that we would want to achieve in this particular step. So let's go ahead and quickly add in the jars. Let's go to the pom.xml and add this in. I would go in here. I think Spring Security, I'll just put it before Spring MVC or after Spring MVC. So that's good. So now we have the thing added in the POM. So you would slowly see the Maven dependencies also coming in. Spring Security core, Spring Security config. That's good. So we have these things added in. So this is where we would learn an important feature in Eclipse. So what I would do is I'll copy the entire class. So I'm selecting the entire thing, Command C. So Control C, I'm copying this in. What I would do is I would go in to the Java, source main Java, and right click, paste. Do you see the magic happening? So Eclipse would create the class for you. So if you copy any class from anywhere, that's the easiest way to create the class. So we kind of used a shortcut. So we pulled in the data from our Git repository. So what this security configuration defines is basically two things. Who are the valid users? The valid users are in 28 minutes and his password is dummy, and he has roles user and admin. So what I'm saying is in 28 minutes dummy, if anybody logs in with this ID, give him the user ID, give him the role user and also the admin role. And if you want to add more users, you can do that in here as well. You can keep adding more with user and passwords in here. That should not be a problem. And the second thing that we did is we have configured which URLs are secure. And we are saying anything which contains to do has to be secured. And it should be allowed only for users who have a role user. So in 28 minutes has a role user, so he'll be allowed. And the /login is the page where Spring Security would expose a login page of its own. So the Spring Security already has a login page of its own, which would be exposed at the /login URL. So that login URL alone, we would permit everybody to log in. And for rest everything, you would at least need to have a user role. If you don't have a user role, then you would be asked to log in. So that's basically what the configuration is saying. It's quite a simple configuration. There's not a lot of things in here as such. The last one is we would want to add in a filter. So let's go ahead and quickly configure this filter in. Where do we configure the filter? Web.xml. Let's go ahead and do that. So let's add a filter at the end of the. So this filter is delegating filter proxy. We want this to handle all the requests which are coming into the dispatcher servlet. So we are saying /star. Anything that comes in, take it to the Spring Security filter chain, and only then let it be handled by the dispatcher servlet. That's it. With those 3 mini steps, we are ready. And let's see what is happening. So let's type in nav localhost /8080. Nothing is happening because I have to restart the server. I made a change in the web.xml. So let's restart the server. So now I'm typing in localhost 8080, and now you're automatically redirected to a login page. Actually, this is not a login page that we have created. This is the default page which comes in with Spring Security. And now we type in the user ID and password that we have configured. So in 28 minutes and dummy and login. And now you can see that I'm able to go to the home page and to-dos page as well. What you can try doing is actually try closing the browser, completely close the browser, and try to enter the URL list to-dos. You would see that that URL is blocked. From now on, you will not be able to go to any of the URLs without logging in. And even if your session timeout has happened, let's say if your session times out, then you would see that whenever you type in the URL again or refresh the page, you would be sent to the login page, and you have to log in and create the session, and you would need to come in. So that's the magic of Spring Security. Let's discuss a lot more about Spring Security in the next step.